So we're here with Chris Campbell. Chris, you're getting ready to retire after a long
career.
Long career, right?
Yeah.
30 years.
30 years here in Boise, yeah.
26 at Fives, is that right?
20, yeah, off and on. Permanently 22, then about 3 or 4 years where I was in and out, depending on what was going on. So
started in 93, right?
94.
94?
Yeah.
So
February 1st, 94.
Career spans 4 decades.
Yep. And I actually started in 88 in Oregon, worked for Coos Bay.
That's right.
Down there. Bay. So, yeah.
Sweet.
5 decades, I guess.
So I've had this question I wanted to ask because I knew it had spanned 5 decades now that I know that, but which decade was your favorite? Like, and why? There's a lot of changes happening.
They were all unique. They all had, I was trying to remember all the little different scares like COVID. When I got hired, it was HIV was the big thing. And so I was kind of going through what was the big thing at the time. And my memory's getting kind of fuzzy.
Like all of ours.
Yeah, they all kind of mix together. What was my favorite decade? Man, that's a tough one because everything was different and everything was a different either learning step, experience step, stuff like that. The 80s were definitely more fire active, but it also was the years of the NFPA 1500 just now coming into play. And so we did a lot more risky stuff, risky behavior, as they would call it. Our turnout gear sucked. Air packs, we didn't have to wear them if we didn't want to.
Yeah.
We didn't have turnout pants. So I liked that personally. That was fun. But at the same time, I was so young, I didn't know any different and didn't know any better. And I was a young, dumb guy. So in the 90s were my introduction to EMS. Because when I first started, we didn't run EMS. We ran car wrecks, and that was it. And I actually worked for a department outside of Portland, and didn't want anything to do with EMS. So the chief at the time put me on the box, and I ran on the bus for about a year and a half, and learned quick on what EMS is like, and actually turned to like it. So I liked it quite a bit. And that was a great learning experience, so it's still stupid and dumb, but it was a good learning experience. Unfortunately, I learned all about politics also during that time because I had never planned on coming to Boise, didn't even really know where Boise was at, but I learned about layoffs and learned all about budgets and what happens when they roll your taxes back, and learned what it was like to go from being a fairly secure, getting ready to step up, because back in those days, everybody's goal around Portland was to go to the big three, Portland, Clackamas, Tualatin Valley, and if not, Vancouver. So, and that was it. And at the times when the Measure 5 hit and the taxes got rolled back and they laid us off from a little department, and Portland went into a massive hiring freeze, closed down, I think at the time they closed down 7 or 8 companies. Multiple stations.
That's a big deal in Oregon.
It was a huge deal, huge. And so it was a tough pill to swallow. And I fell back on I was almost a paramedic, fell back on that, and ended up working for AMR for a while, which was a great learning curve, and also taught me I don't want to do transport. Transport was miserable. So
especially for AMR.
Yeah, especially for AMR. System status was awful. So then Boise called. Literally it was just a complete fluke that I'd even tested here, and Boise called, offered me a job, and at the time I was working for AMR, and I was like, yeah, I'll come over and do it. So came about this close to not staying here. Got a couple other job offers, and it was a guy named, gotta remember what his last name was now, Mike. He was our drill master at the time. But anyway, he was our drill master here at Boise. He talked me out of leaving Boise, said, we're going to do all this great stuff. You're going to be one of the first paramedics working here, yada, yada, yada. And like literally less than a month later, he quit and went to work for Tualatin Valley. so kept me staying here. Yeah, so anyway, the kind of next couple of years was just kind of a mix of just having fun, being young, ended up getting married and started having a family. And that kind of solidified staying here in the Valley. And then the department started growing. The economy, when I first came here, was pretty challenging, pretty tough. Downtown, nothing like is now, not a thing. It was like a bombed out, ruined place with boarded up buildings and everything else. A few things kind of going here and there, but nothing like we have now. And kind of just, but I caught my niche and came to Fives, got a chance to come down here at Fives as a firefighter. And I was sitting at the kitchen table one day looking out the windows and just said, I could sit here for years, rest of my career, easily. And just kind of knew I found home, and I liked it, and I liked the people I dealt with, and I liked the call volumes we went on, and actually wanted to be a lot busier, especially when I was younger. I wanted to be way busier. And yeah, it was just kind of, I liked we had a lot of different things happening all the time. And so, it wasn't just medical calls, it wasn't just this, it was a great mix of all kinds of stuff. And the challenges, I've always said the best thing about this job is a challenge. You have no idea 5 seconds from now what's going to challenge you. No clue. And that to me makes the job right there. So, as well as the people.
I love your demeanor. Busier is better.
Busier is better, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, those slow days I used to hate.
Yeah, I always wanted to run 5, 6, 7,000 calls a year. So, never quite got there. Got close, but, it's all right.
Next generation, right?
Yeah.
What was the most calls you ran in one day?
Actually, it wasn't a one-day period. It was a 72-hour period, and it was 2 tours in a row. Tim Raymond and I both were working, and we both picked up an extra day, and we ran 67 calls one tour and 64 calls the next tour.
Wow. Holy cow.
So, yeah, and it was just banging, nonstop, running. Summertime, call volume stuff going on. And, I don't even know how many calls we missed because we were out on so many other calls.
Sleepless nights, right?
Yeah. So we had a truck with us. The truck was picking up a lot of calls because that was kind of, there was a little time period there where the truck went out on medicals right with the engine, and it was nice because it kept the engine one in service more, so they didn't have to run across downtown and stuff like that. And so both rigs were busy. I think the truck ran 24, 30 calls, and we ran 67 or so. But yeah, those were the busiest tours. So
that's
awesome. A lot of tours of 24 runs in 24 hours. So
that's almost an FDNY Boston type run call.
Get there. Yeah. It's definitely busy.
I like it.
So if we didn't have, it used to be, you go into the summertime, you had those busy summertime months, and then it would slow down kind of rest of the year, and you get those days where it was like 6 to 8 runs a day. Mm-hmm. And we don't have those anymore.
Right.
We are now to a point where we're running 10 to 12 runs a day every single day, no matter what.
Yep.
So, yeah. You could
better be ready for it.
Yeah. You could kill it during the summertime because then you could rest a little during the winter. But, yeah, it just doesn't happen.
So Brad asked you about, just the funnest times throughout your career. You probably know the question I'm going to ask. That over that whole span, if you had to just pick one thing that we've advanced in, that one change, you're like, that one made the most sense. That one was definitely worth the time.
The one change in the department that made the most sense
has been the lasting change that you say that.
Yeah,
that was
it's easy. It was the Ada County City County joint power agreement for EMS. That to me has been the biggest and best change as far as. Oops, sorry.
That's awesome.
As far as working relationships, that has been the biggest and best change. That was the change that went from us versus them to we are just one cohesive unit working together.
Nice.
And then doing the joint trainings and everything like that. That as far as the majority of, because a lot of EMS calls, so that's the biggest thing right there, yeah.
And then you stay well informed as a company officer, so you know kind of our future plans, right?
Yep.
If you had to pick one out there in the future that you've looked at our plans, you said that one's going to make a huge impact. What do you think it'll be?
Probably the one that I think that needs to be done the most is Station 20. Station 20 down on Lake Hazel Road, and the addition of another ladder company.
Yep. Growth in the south.
That growth in the south has been huge. And then with everything they're planning on Lake Hazel going out towards the airport, that's a big necessity.
Yeah.
So, But 4-person engine companies has always been a thing I've always pushed for. That to me is a safety issue. I've always thought it was a safety issue. And I went back to the Providence, Rhode Island study where they ran half their companies with 4 people and half the companies with 3. And the reduction of injuries and sick leave on the 4-person companies made it so they could actually put 4 people on every rig.
Yep.
So that to me was a big
Creative
safety one.
financing.
Yep.
Right.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, man, those are probably some of the biggest ones right there. Other than, there's a lot. I mean, everything that you have planned, from the safety officers online to the duty chief being kind of more responsive, more involved in stuff, even the squad project program coming up, those are all game changers and big things.
Yeah.
So, which is nice, because for years and years we had no plans whatsoever, and we didn't know where we were going. So it's nice to actually have some plans that may or may not work out.
Yeah.
So at least we got them.
Okay, so part of the intent today is we're capturing knowledge for future generations. And as you know, we have a very young department.
Mm-hmm.
And, every department goes through this. There's cycles of this. And we don't want to transfer or lose transfer of critical knowledge. What advice would you give somebody starting today that you think would carry out throughout their career and make them successful?
Well, the biggest thing is be flexible. Be ready for things to change on you all the time. Don't take things personal. But be passionate about job, study the job. Get out and study your city and know your city. Know where your challenging areas are at, and know where there's areas that aren't too bad and you don't have to worry about too much, but still know them. Don't be in a huge hurry to promote. Learn the job. Be educated on the functions of every job. So that's a big one right there. So learning everything coming up. Unfortunately, we're so young. We're going to need so many officers and stuff coming up. We're going to have some really young people. For the officers and their companies, get out, learn the district. Learn your district, be committed to your district, know what's going on in your district, not only with the building construction and roads and everything happening, but learn and know who your business owners are and stuff like that, and make those connections with those folks. So, and just learn people here and there. It can make the job way, way easier. So, and then probably the biggest thing is keep stuff simple. Too many people overthink stuff and it turns into a total mess. So it's like, slow yourself down a little bit, keep things simple, keep things organized, and you'll probably be just fine. So
let me ask you an old guy question. This is what happens when we get old. We ask these old guy questions. So kind of along the same lines as Brad, if you could look back at your whole career and tell yourself something, day one, that you know now but you didn't know then, what would you tell yourself 30 years ago?
Man, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you. That is a tough question. What would I tell myself 30 years ago? Don't do this job so long. No, man.
It's
just
gonna hurt.
enjoy everything, I guess, would be probably the biggest thing. Let people make mistakes, which I've learned by making my own mistakes and things like that, and be okay with making mistakes, because that's how you learn.
Yeah.
So. But also be patient. There's a lot of times I wasn't very patient. So and just try to get out and enjoy the activities and stuff, because there were some things that I didn't get out and do a lot of times because of one thing or another. Just put other things in priority, but make the events with the department, make the events with the people and personnel and your friends a big priority. That's probably the one biggest thing I would say right there. I wish I would have made those things more of a priority in my life. So
Well, now you can.
yeah.
So I think another question I've got is, I'm fascinated by leadership. I think we all are. And you've been a company officer where crews wanted to come work for you, right? They didn't run away. They wanted to come work for you. What do you think drove that? What was the style you brought, or what was it that you brought? That made people want to
I
come?
was very, very lucky to work for very good company officers myself. People who trusted me to do my job, people who let me do my job, and people who trained me very well on how to do the job. And then also took that and let me do it. and they stood back, even though they were kind of in charge of everything and supposed to be the one doing everything. They said, "No, you do it. You
So
take
succession
over.
planning,
You do this."
mentorship, all the things we talked
Yeah,
about.
and that to me is probably the biggest thing. I mean, my whole job, the way I look at it, is I am here to teach the next guys coming up or next people coming up to do what I do. And if I haven't done that, I've failed at my entire existence in the department. So, and I think I've done a really good job of that. I enable them to try to do the tough stuff and try to work on stuff. And, you know, I don't always go do what the typical captain may be supposed to do. I may look at them and go, "No, you got to deal with it. I don't need to deal with it. You need to learn how to do this." So, and I think that was a lot of what I think people liked working for me for. So, and then at times I was honest with them when it came to the hard stuff. And I had to learn that because I learned that the tough way because I wasn't honest with a guy one time. And it affected our relationship. It made me feel pretty bad about the way I handle it. And I learned to be honest with people. I also have set rules on how you operate. They're right up on the board, right up there. Anybody can walk in here, look at my rules on the board, and they know what I expect. So, and then there's no question about, you know, how you deal with stuff, how you do stuff, how we respond, everything like that. So
clear expectations, clear communication, tough conversations.
Yep.
And those are all leadership qualities, right?
Yep.
That we try and preach that.
Being honest when honesty isn't sometimes the best thing and the easiest thing to do. In my way of thinking and stuff like that, it's going to make them a better person. And it's also going to point out that you have these deficiencies.
Well, I think it helps people grow, right? When you can have those crucial, real conversations with people.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then you're passionate. You know, I saw the video that Lindsay put out. You were down at the Recruit Academy just recently, right? Days before your retirement.
Yeah.
Given the same preach, right?
Best
Preaching
one.
Yeah.
That was a better one I actually gave for you guys, and the better one
great.
I've given in a couple of years. So, yeah, that's been one of my things. Bob Ruth came before me, and I happened to work at Station 8 when Bob was there, and he was passionate about history and about how it needs to be passed on. And I just kind of got sucked into Bob's little web there. Next thing I started doing it, but I like doing it. I like studying history. I like kind of looking information up. I like when people call and say, "Hey, I've had a fire in my house. We think it was in the 40s," and being able to kind of know where to go and look for that stuff. So, and that's actually when I retire, that's going to be the one thing I'd probably kind of try to do.
I was gonna say, you're not leaving completely, right?
No, not leaving completely. No.
You got this pretty cool museum piece that we're incorporating into fives, and I think you're going to be a big part of that.
Yeah, I'd like to. I'd like to be able to have a kind of a hand in on helping not only set it up, but also make it a place where if people want to try to do some research or get something, we have people that can help them do that.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a pretty important thing too.
So that all the history stuff, I mean, Bob, we talked to Bob about this in the podcast, but that last donation that we got had to have been pretty cool.
That was awesome.
That was significant.
Incredible.
Like that was.
I mean,
that's
cool.
a
once in a lifetime. The stuff that family donated. I mean, the fact that some of that stuff still exists and especially in a good condition it is an absolute miracle.
Yeah.
So, cool. I mean, that's leaving it on the shelf and not touching it for 100 years. Right there.
Surprised it didn't make its way to a garbage can at some point. I mean, usually some of this stuff does, right?
Well, and that, you know, when I got hired, I remember them talking about when they cleaned out Old Central and cleaned out the offices down there in 6th and Main, and them just dumping stuff out. Logbooks and stuff and notes about the department and files full of pictures. And some of the guys salvaged some of that stuff out of there, but it was just, I mean, it's too bad. It was just man, short-sightedness all the way around. Love to have that stuff. So, yeah, unfortunately, Boise hasn't been the best at doing that. And when we tried, I think we had a bunch of stuff in the basement of City Hall and all got flooded. Yeah. So it's like, we tried and failed. So, but we've got a lot of stuff still, which is good. Now we do have the old dispatch logbooks are the best. So, yeah, there's valuable stuff in there.
I mean, I literally could say, I'm thinking about you and just your passion. And I know we're riding in these big brand new engines and all that kind of stuff, but I could see Chris, horse-drawn, right, back in the day, like just loving it.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I think it would have been just one of those jobs I would have came in and started doing and liked doing, and that's, if I'm happy with doing it, that happiness goes a long ways. Yeah. So you asked me one time why I've never promoted to a battalion chief, happiness. happiness with where I'm at, happiness with my crews, happiness feeling like I'm making a difference. And that was a big thing, amongst a couple other things, but we won't mention them right now. So, but no, happiness goes a long ways. And I've told people that have talked about promoting, talked about changing stations. And I said, the first thing you got to do is ask if you're happy. Yeah. If you're happy, you probably need to really think about what you're doing. So
let me ask you this. Give us your advice for chief officers, right? Even those that are going to be coming up through the ranks and
listen
they hit
to
that
your
division
people.
chief. Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Listen to your people.
Yeah.
Remember where you came from. Remember your thoughts, your ideas, what you thought would be a good thing. But listen to what's going on out in the line. Talk to your people. Talk to them about, not only the busy stations, but the slow stations. What is happening in your neighborhood? What do you need to operate? What do you need to work? What can I do for you? Is it feasible or is it insane? Because you're going to get the insane stuff that comes through. Right. But I mean, really, that's what it is. It's just listening, paying attention to your people, letting them know you're there for them, and then the same thing is enabling them to do your job. Teach them how to do your job. Educate them about that, what happens there. So I think a lot of distrust comes because there's that division where the operations and line people have no idea what's going on with the administration people. And I think that's a nationwide problem. Yeah. So, yeah.
Has been since the start of time.
You've actually done, as far as chiefs that I've ever worked for, you've been probably the most out there of saying this is what we're working towards. And then also when I brought up questions about some of the stuff and you guys were like, well, I didn't even know about that. You admitted it right off the bat. You said, yeah, that stuff further down the road that kind of just got put in there, we're not even sure where that fits. Yeah. So, and then because people need to know that. They need to hear that. Yeah. The other thing, and I'll put out there, and I learned this from Ren Ross, care for your people. Let them know you care for them. Reach out to the ones that are struggling, reach out for the ones that are injured, reach out to the ones who have some type of death in their family, no matter what it is. Let them know you're there for them. That was Ren's greatest gift he ever gave this department. He cared for the guys so much that you knew you could count on him. Yeah. He'd have your back.
What about advice for a company officer, those that aren't even there yet?
Company officer, learn your department, learn your city. Know your SOPs and EOGs, and be super flexible and ready for things to change. Always have something to try to teach your members. And we always do a morning briefing here at Fives. I go in on the computer, I write down the same notes that the BCs are going to tell us and talk to us about, and then I kind of look up stuff. Sometimes I'll try to find stuff out of fire engineering or firehouse of things that have happened around the U.S. or even Canada. Challenging things, budgetary things, tactic things, yada, yada, whatever. And then I go through my email, I go through the city email, I go through what the plan is as far as training and stuff. And I have it on a sheet that I sit down with the folks. And a lot of it is not only to just go over what is happening in the department and happening training-wise, but it's just to talk to them and see what's going on in their life and see where they're at for the day. And it worked really, really good, especially at Stage 5 with the bigger crew, because it brought us all together for a while and kind of laid out, hey, this is what's going on, this is what we're working on, this is what the ladder needs to get done, this is what the engine needs to get done. And then it just kind of let us have that FaceTime together. And that to me is super important. And I've told everyone that company officers, take time in the morning to do that. Don't come in, put your stuff on the rig, say hi to guys, and then immediately start working out. Take time to do the morning briefing. And I really think it should be something that should be required. Absolutely 100%. From this time to this time in the morning, you will do morning briefing, you will talk with your crews, and you will have your plan and your setup going. Because it starts off, it's kind of like the way the first line goes, the fire goes. Yeah. The way to sitting down and relaxing in the morning, going over everything, is the way the rest of your tour goes.
Set the tempo for the day.
Yeah.
Sets the tempo for the day.
So I wanted to maybe change the line of conversation a little bit. Non-fire related, what's the first thing you're going to do when you retire?
First thing I'm going to do, sleep. So, yeah, learning how to sleep is going to be a big one. Yeah. That's a challenge. We still have kids that are pretty young. Garrett's 11, Lila's 12 or 13. We have a son who's part of the reason why I'm retiring when I am retiring is because he's going into the basketball state divisionals and championship right before that. And they're doing pretty good, and I wanted to just be able to watch them.
Awesome.
Play. Didn't want to miss the games and didn't want to have conflicts. So watching basketball. We have Natalie, who's handicapped, so we'll always have her with us. And so I'll spend a lot of time doing her stuff and whatever we need to do with her and just getting her out and getting her up and doing things. So
And then come back and visit us once in a while.
Yep, and then come back visit once in a while. So other than that, I got a lot of little hobbies and junk that I'm gonna do, and got an addition I'm putting on our house, and so I got too much junk to do. I probably wish I was at work. So
You'll be busy.
yeah.
Well, I guess, I mean, the floor's kind of yours here to wrap it up. You know, anything that we didn't cover that you'd really like to capture so that folks.
No,
the goal
I
is
mean,
we're doing this for the future generation, right? What you've been doing your whole
yeah,
career.
I mean, I think you kind of talked about a lot of it. Be ready for change.
Yeah.
Be excited for it, and at the same time, kind of hold on to the old stuff. You know, there's reasons why we have solid bore nozzles on our apparatus here. It's because they worked back in the early 1900s, and we went to other newer stuff that was supposed to be better and found out it wasn't. And we went back to the old stuff. So don't be super eager to jump on the new bandwagon that's coming down the pipe.
Prove it.
Yeah, exactly. Prove it. Prove it's going to work. And, you know, if your stuff's working good, hang on to it. We have a lot of equipment we've used since the horse days, since the days with just the buckets. And the reason we still use that equipment is because it works. So don't disregard your equipment just because there's something new coming around the corner.
Yeah.
So, and there's going to be a lot of cool new stuff coming. It'll be neat. You know, I'd like to be around 10, 20 years to kind of see some of the new stuff that's going to be out there. It's going to be like being a fighter pilot and stuff.
That'd be
and,
crazy.
the remote control firefighting apparatus, you know, they used on Notre Dame and stuff like that. It'll be neat to see that kind of stuff come out there. So, but at the same time, you know, they put out a lot of stuff that turned out to be
Junk.
a failure and junk. Yeah. I remember when I was up in Battleground, Washington years ago, and they had a brand new pumper there, and the pump was operated on a radio remote control system, which worked awesome, except for one of their tack channels. They keyed the mic and it shut the pump off. So it was like little things like that. It's like, that doesn't work
Maybe
very
not.
well. So, yeah, I mean, be ready for change, embrace it, and question it all at the same time.
So that one memorable moment that you're always going to hang on to forever, that this was awesome.
This is actually, it was before I came to Boise, and I was working in the little department there in Oregon. And I will always remember this call because this is the biggest fire I've ever been on in my life. But it's funny because Rob Lynn, who is another retired Boise firefighter at the time, was working as a student firefighter for Beaver Creek Fire District right by Oregon City. And they had gone on a call on a fire alarm into Oregon City with Oregon City's rigs. At the time, there was no countywide Clackamas County Fire District. It was all separate still. And they were coming back, and Rob was driving, and I can't remember the name of his lieutenant at the time, but Rob's going, "Hey, dude, you got to look up." He's like, "What?" And he's like, "Look up." And said that they looked up, and there was like an atom bomb had gone off. This column of smoke just going. And we all got toned out for the call, like within like a second, he said. We got toned right then. And I remember turning the corner of the station. I mean, this was the biggest column of smoke I had ever seen in my life. And it was a lumber mill in our first in district on fire. And that thing was ripping. And that is the one
just
thing
outside of Coos Bay?
that
Or
was
where
actually in Estacada, right south of Oregon City there.
Okay.
So kind of out in the hinterlands, but that was probably the one fire that will stick with me forever, just because you see those posters of the guys back in Boston and stuff, and the guys back in New England going on those old mill fires where it's just massive flame, and that's exactly what it was. It was just like, we're going to be here for a couple days.
Long time.
So yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, that was probably the one main memory that has stuck with me for years, because I probably was only like 20, 21 years old when we went on that call. So, yeah.
It's a good one.
That's awesome. Good one.
You want to talk about the chair?
Oh, the chair? Well, the chair was made by one of the guys here at the station. I think Matt can, but it's just, something guys, it's the one thing about firefighters. They are always coming up with new things and building their own things. I mean, that's how the Halligan was made. That's how the Breslin nozzle was made, which are all stuff we've carried on the rigs for 100 years. And this chair will probably be sitting in Firehouse 5 for God knows how long until they close that one down and throw it out. So, or until it gets totally destroyed. So, yeah.
No, then it'll
They'll
get
build
fixed.
another one.
Yeah.
It'll be
they'll fix it.
repaired.
Yeah, but
fix
they'll
it.
rebuild it. So,
Yeah.
There'll
but
be
yeah,
metal braces
it's
on
kind
it.
of a cool chair the guys just came up with
That
and
is cool.
brought into the funeral home.